Steam Summer Sale is one of the best times of the year to be an RTS fan, because while newer games rarely stay cheap for long, this is where you can grab genuine classics, modern standouts, and a few criminally overlooked strategy games for some insanely good prices. The main problem for gamers is sorting out what are the must-buys from the ones that look good on a Steam page but then don't quite carry over into reality. Now I'm going to include everything for the LT gamers today: huge scale warfare, classic base building, all the way to space RTS and strategy hybrids, with a few newer games that are pushing the genre forward. If you enjoy coverage like this that goes beyond just hype and trailers, consider liking the video, help us on the algorithm, and subscribe to LT Gaming if you think we earned it. We've also got a bunch more Steam sale lists coming across other genres, so feel free to check those out as well. Right, let's get you guys spending some money. Supreme Commander Forged Alliance, 80% discount, €1.99. Kicking things off with a proper classic, Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. This is still one of the best RTS games ever made for players who want scale. Not just a few tanks knocking around outside a base, but enormous maps, serious economies, experimental units, and battles that feel like an entire war has broken out on your monitor. What keeps it relevant today is Forged Alliance Forever, that community client that has kept multiplayer, balance patches, mods, maps, and the wider scene alive long after official support disappeared. It does show its ages in places, and the learning curve is not exactly gentle, but for big picture RTS fans, that is part of the charm. This game is the best for anyone who wants massive strategic RTS battles, who doesn't mind putting a little bit of time into learning the ropes. Northgard, 72% discount, €9.79. This is Shiro games at their best. An RTS that looks fairly simple at first, then somehow will have you going 3 hours later, because this next winter is definitely the one where everything's going to be under control. You're challenged as a player to settle in a rather severe Norse wilderness, expanding your territory tile by tile, managing food, wood, population, happiness, and just keeping everyone alive basically. It is slower, more deliberate than something like Age of Empires for example, but this is why it works. Every new territory matters, it unlocks new challenges, every winter can ruin a good plan. There is a proper campaign, multiplayer co-op, a conquest mode, and plenty of DLC if that is your thing. This one is best for RTS gamers who like survival pressure, satisfying economic decisions, and this dangerously addictive one more match feeling. Tempest Rising, 30% discount, €27.99. This is probably the closest thing we've had to a modern day Command & Conquer revival, and it has only gone from strength to strength since launch. It absolutely understands the appeal of the older style of RTS with all the things you expect there. But it's not just trading on nostalgia, the factions feel very good, the missions give you room to customize your army, and multiplayer has enough depth there for players who want to take it more seriously once they're done with the campaign. For anyone who has spent years saying, I just want a new Command & Conquer, this is about as close as it gets. Rusted Warfare RTS, 42% discount, €2.89. Rusted Warfare has quietly become one of my go-to RTS games when I just want to jump in, build a base, and have a bit of quick old school strategy action without needing to set aside an entire evening. It is very much built in the spirit of classic RTS games, straightforward base building, big unit battles, plenty of units to choose from. The visuals are deliberately simple, but that's part of why it works so well. It runs brilliantly, gets you into the game quickly, and can handle surprisingly large battles. It has a plethora of tools available too, for sandbox, multiplayer, co-op, and cross-platform play. And once you tire of the base game, there is a very active workshop scene to dig into. It's already a very cheap game outside of a sale, so with a discount it's very easy to recommend. This one is best for quick RTS sessions, classic base building fans, and anyone wants just a low input game with plenty of mod support. Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, 65% discount, €11.54. I'm not entirely sure I need to sell this one to anyone, but here goes. Age of Empires 2 is one of the legendary RTS games for a very good reason, and the Definitive Edition is simply the best way to play it right now. You have dozens of civilizations, huge campaigns, a 500 population cap, and proper quality of life improvements, sharper visuals, and a pretty thriving multiplayer scene to boot. More than that though, it's just one of those games where the core loop never stops being brilliant. Build your economy up, move through the ages, scout your opponent, and then desperately try to work out why you're being invaded from an angle you never looked for. There are more modern RTS games on this list of course, but for pure depth, longevity and the classic base building rhythm, I think this is still the one to beat. It's the best for pretty much every RTS fan. Mindustry, 60% discount, €3.99. Mindustry is a slightly different flavour of RTS, blending factory building, tower defence and real-time strategy into this very Moorish little package. You build supply chains, feed ammunition into turrets, expand your production, and then using the units you've manufactured to push into enemy territory. There is a proper campaign with this one too. You've got that alongside co-op, PvP, sandbox play. There's also a lot of modding involved as well. Now, it's not a traditional RTS in like the Age of Empires sense, but for around 10 quid before it's even on sale, it is a bargain. Add in the killer soundtrack and great presentation, it's a very easy recommend. This one is best for RTS players who love automation, tower defense, factory building, and getting attached to a conveyor belt network a bit unhealthily. Battlezone Combat Commander, 81% discount, €3.79. This game is the remaster of the classic Battlezone 2, and it still does something that very few RTS games have ever properly matched. Of course, you've got your base building, your resource gathering, your production of units, but then you're also commanding the battle from above and jumping straight into the cockpit of a hover tank and getting involved yourself. So it has the classic RTS management, but also mixed in with first-person vehicle combat, and it gives it a really distinctive feel. One minute you're setting up production and ordering an assault, next you're personally trying to stop an enemy push because no one else is going to handle it. It doesn't have the AAA gloss of newer games, and there's a few old school edges to it, but the remaster certainly gives it a proper second lease on life. This game is best for anyone who wants a classic RTS with a hands-on twist and fancies both being the commander and the bloke at the front causing all the trouble. RUSE, 25% discount, €22.49. RUSE is finally back on Steam, and it remains one of the more distinctive World War II RTS games ever made, in my humble opinion. On the surface, it is fairly easy to get into. You build up some economy, choose your units, take ground, and then try to outmaneuver the enemy. But underneath all of this, there is a surprising amount of depth in how every faction plays. USSR leans into numbers and cheaper units. Germany starts awkwardly but can become terrifying at the later stages. Throw in France, Britain, America and Italy, all with their own strengths. So you don't just pick a flag, you pick a doctrine. The real hook though is in the name. You can use deception cards to hide troops, create fake armies, scout positions, and just do a lot of cool stuff. It is still very much a 2010 game though, so don't expect modern polish everywhere. This one is best for anyone who wants a tactical World War II experience with strong faction variety. Calyx, 20% discount, €19.99. This is one of those games that feels like it deserves a bit more attention than it has had so far. It's a more casual paced RTS and base builder, so you do have all the stuff like mining resources and expansion, setting up defenses, but it has a lot of they are billions in its DNA, particularly in the balance between building up a strong defensive position and knowing when you need to get out there and start pushing back. It's easy enough to learn on normal difficulty, but harder settings do force you to experiment and start to think a bit differently. This is still an early access title, so bear that in mind, and it's best for RTS players who do enjoy the base building tower defense side and then having to find your own solutions rather than just brute forcing every map. Total War Rome 2, 80% discount, €11.99. I'd be remiss if I did an RTS list without at least one Total War game in here, and Rome 2 is a very solid place to start. The base game has come a long way since its infamous launch. What you have now is a huge grand strategy sandbox along with the iconic real-time battles that are synonymous with this series. The big reason it earns its place here though is the mod scene. Once you're done with the base campaign, there are major overhauls, historic conversions, visual improvements, and enough extra content to keep you going for years. This game is best for those who want grand strategy, large-scale RTS historical battles, and a Total War game with plenty of life beyond the base game. Regiments, 40% discount, €14.99. This game is a great pick for anyone who likes the idea of RTS but doesn't want to play at the speed of a caffeinated StarCraft professional. This one is an alternate Cold War gone wrong, and it's more on the real-time tactics side than the traditional base builder. You command battle groups, call in reinforcements, take objectives, and try not to lose your entire armoured column because you push too far ahead. It's very approachable because of the pace. You can slow things down, pause, take a proper look at what is happening before committing to a fight. There's plenty to get stuck into as well, with different DLCs adding more factions and scenarios once you've worked through the main content. This game is best for anyone who wants satisfying Cold War combat, tactical depth without needing the reflexes of a teenager, which I absolutely don't have anymore. Age of Empires 4, 65% discount, €13.99. Age of Empires 4 is probably the best modern starting point for anyone who wants to get into the Age of Empires rhythm. It's got a bit more polish and a much healthier modern multiplayer scene. Familiar loops of course, economy, scouting. Coming into it now can be a bit daunting, particularly in the multiplayer side. The player base has had years to learn build orders, matchups, and when exactly to send your group of horsemen directly into enemies' villagers. But there is decent guidance in single player modes, and it does a good job of easing you into different factions and core systems. This game is best for anyone who wants a modern, approachable multiplayer RTS with proper depth to grow into. Rogue Command, 30% discount, €13.99. A more modern entry now, this is a PvE roguelite RTS built around a very simple but very satisfying core loop. You start a run holding off steady waves of enemies, slowly build up your economy and army, then turn that into a ridiculous death ball, eventually trying to roll across the map and demolish the enemy base. Then you do it again, but you get a few upgrades, different choices, a few permanent meta progressions. Lovely jubbly. It's not trying to be a huge competitive RTS with 30-minute build orders and endless faction matchups. This is more about adapting on the fly. This one is best for RTS fans who want a single player roguelite, where building an absurdly large army is not only allowed, it is actively encouraged. Kohan 2 Kings of War, 20% discount, €7.99. We are going properly old school for this one now with Kohan Kings of War. I like both Kohan games, but Kings of War just edges it for me. It is a classic fantasy RTS, but it doesn't play like the usual click your units, send it towards the enemy formula. Instead, you build custom companies made up of different frontline and support units, led by powerful Kohan heroes. It gives battles a very tactical feel. Now, it is absolutely a game of its time, both visually and mechanically, so you need to forgive a few rough old school edges here. It is a classic that never got quite the same attention as some of the giants of this era, but it's well worth a look for anyone who enjoys an older fantasy RTS game with a bit of tactical character. Homeworld Remastered Collection, 90% discount, €3.19. For my money, Homeworld is still the best space RTS ever made, full stop. There are games with bigger fleets, more modern visuals, more complicated economies, but very few have ever matched the atmosphere of Homeworld, the music, the sound design, the lonely scale of space, and the sense that every ship you lose actually matters. The Remastered Collection gives you both Homeworld 1 and 2, updated for modern systems, and you get more than 30 campaign missions across the two games. I replayed the campaign recently and honestly it reminded me of how special this game is. Controls feel a little bit older than some modern RTS games, but the core absolutely holds up. I've also spent some time with the mod scene. I can really recommend the Star Trek mods out there. So this is best for anyone who wants the definitive space RTS experience. Go for it. Cataclismo, 50% discount, €14.99. This one is a really refreshing mix of RTS, tower defense, and I would say proper Lego style fortress building. Core loop is very simple. You build a stronghold piece by piece, place your troops carefully, then try to survive the night when the enemy starts throwing everything it has at you. What makes it work is you can take your time, you get to pause and think through what you want to do, look at your defenses and make decisions. Building your base is hugely satisfying, and troop combat has enough tactical bite that you don't just have to rely on your walls, but you also have to have some strategy behind your thinking. There's a few awkward spots where it feels a bit restrictive at points, but overall a very clever game. This game is best for anyone who enjoys building up their defences, pausing to plan, and watching those plans get stress tested by a horde of enemies. Ultimate General Civil War, 60% discount, €11.59. One for the military RTS fans now, especially anyone after a more grounded setting in a time period that is not visited nearly enough. Ultimate General Civil War is an easy one to recommend. It's a tactical real-time strategy game set during the American Civil War, where battles are less about rushing out your units or speed building an economy, and more about managing proper formations. For me, the campaign is where this one really shines. Your army carries forward between battles, so casualties matter, veteran units matter, and a victory that costs you half your best brigades will come back to haunt you later. This one is best for military strategy fans who want a historical RTS with positioning, casualties, and battlefield decisions that carry forward. Godsworn, 25% discount, €21.74. One of the newer RTS games on this list, but one that wears its old school influences very proudly. This is a mythological fantasy RTS set around Baltic Crusades. You've got all the stuff you want in base building, resource gathering, but you add in heroes, god powers, and armies made up of mortal troops alongside mythical creatures. Yep, it sounds pretty good. It has a bit of the classic Warcraft 3 flavour, but it is not just copying it outright. It's still in early access, so it's worth going in with that in mind, but there's already co-op capable campaign, skirmish maps, challenge maps, PvP, so a very solid core to build on top of. This one is best for anyone who misses that hero-led Warcraft 3 style of RTS, but wants it with a newer game with its own setting and ideas. Total War Napoleon, 80% discount, €4.99. Now, we couldn't do this list without another Total War game, and this one is actually Luke's favourite in the entire series. Napoleon Total War has a much tighter focus than most of the Total War games in the franchise. Rather than covering centuries of history, it follows one era, and one rather ambitious Frenchman who in fairness did keep it all very interesting. Now, this of course doesn't have the traditional base building RTS elements, but if you enjoy large scale real time battles with a bit more weight behind every choice, Napoleon remains a brilliant pick. There's a lot of DLC with the definitive edition, and there's a strong modding scene once you've had your fill of the base game. This one is best for Total War fans who prefer a focused campaign, musket era warfare, and some of the strongest battles the series has ever produced. Age of Mythology Retold, 50% discount, €14.99. Now, this is one of those formative RTS games for me. The original had the classic Age of Empires style economy and base building, but then threw in gods, myth units, divine powers, and a genuinely great campaign into the mix. This is why Retold works so well. It's a proper modernisation of a classic, rather than trying to reinvent something completely. Sharp visuals, clean interface, and a lot of quality of life improvements. This is best for anyone who wants classic RTS campaigns with real personality, brilliant mythological flavour, and a very memorable setting in this genre. Master of Command, 25% discount, €22.49. This is one of those games we are especially pleased to see doing well. It comes from another content creator, Armchair Interactive, who is known for his Armchair Historian channel, and is set during the 7 Years' War and is a real-time tactical game where you don't just throw disposable units into a field. Instead, you build an army across a procedural campaign, managing everything you could imagine. This one is a great pick for anyone who wants something a bit more thoughtful and campaign-driven than the traditional competitive RTS. It's best for military strategy fans who enjoy persistent armies, historical warfare, and the pain of watching that veteran regiment get wiped out. Command & Conquer Remastered Collection, 80% discount, €3.99. This is C&C redone for the modern era, and honestly, what is not to love? You're getting the original Command & Conquer and Red Alert alongside all the expansion content, with updated visuals, cleaner controls, and a much better interface, and enough quality of life improvements to make you a very happy RTSer indeed. Original campaigns are here in full, and there's a lot of content to unpack, but it is still an old school RTS at heart, so some of the mechanics are a little bit more simple. This is best for anyone who wants classic RTS history, brilliant campaigns, iconic music, and it all updated in a nice shiny modern package. Original War, 80% discount, €1.99. Original War is a proper forgotten gem, and it channels something I think a lot of modern RTS games have quietly lost. In most strategy games, you lose a few units, you build a few more, and you crack on. Here, your people matter. You can't simply churn out a replacement army every time something goes wrong. so every soldier, engineer, mechanic and scientist is someone you want to keep alive. It has classic RTS foundations in base building, resources, vehicles, research, and essentially fighting for control of the map, but it layers in RPG style progression. Units gain experience in their different roles. It gives the game a very different feel. It's undeniably old school visually and in places mechanically too, but this is best for anyone who wants a classic RTS with a story driven campaign where your units actually matter. Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War Definitive Edition, 30% discount, €19.94. One of the easiest recommendations on this whole list for me, one of my favourite games of all time. The original Dawn of War still feels brilliant because it understood what a 40k battle should be. Brutal, noisy, fast moving, where a few of your squads can become heroes or disappear under a hail of plasma fire. This is the proper complete package. You get everything, including my favourite edition, which is Dark Crusade. It's an older RTS at heart, but that's half the appeal for me. The pacing, faction identity and sound design, and the sheer weight of combat remain top tier, and this definitive edition is an absolute lovely modernisation. It's best for 40k fans, classic RTS players, and anyone who wants to dive into a deep mod scene. Star Wars Empire at War, 65% discount, €6.82. We love us some Star Wars on this channel, and Empire at War is an immense RTS. I can't even remember what the base game plays like if I'm being honest, because I play it mostly through mods. Thrawn's Revenge, Awakening of the Rebellion, Fall of the Republic. Mods like this have turned Empire at War into something much bigger than the original game. New eras, factions, ships, campaigns, mechanics, you name it, you can get hundreds of hours out of them. So yeah, the base game is a classic, but if you're a Star Wars fan, what comes after from the community is what makes this an essential pickup. This is best for Star Wars fans who want to command the galaxy, build ridiculous fleets, and disappear into one of the best modding scenes in gaming history.